Hi everybody, welcome to John Tries to Bake. Tonight I'm going to be baking a French silk pie. It's been a little while since I've recorded one of my bakes and I'm very excited to be doing it again. This is a fun recipe and each time I've made it I've varied a little bit of the flavor profile to kind of better match what my family's interested in eating, and tonight when I make this I'm going to try a new element as well. So the pie I'm going to bake is going to start with a chocolate graham cracker crust, and it's the first time I've done a chocolate crust for this. So I'm going to start with a chocolate graham cracker crust. It's going to have a chocolatey filling in the middle that I'll show you a little bit about how I've modified some of that, and then a whipped cream topping to top it all off. So a really kind of decadent treat for those who like chocolate. So anyway, let's get started for the crust itself. So I've taken a dozen chocolate graham crackers, I've pulverized them, and they are ready to go. So I'm going to start with that, and in that mix I'm going to add 1/3 of a cup of melted butter. Get that in there real quick. Hopefully it won't make too much of a mess. And I'm also going to mix in 1/4 cup sugar. You can do a little bit more sugar if you like. I find that the chocolatey part of the pie and the whipped cream are pretty sweet, so the crust, I'm going to focus on the chocolatey part. But I'm going to get about 1/4 cup of sugar out of here, put that in, and mix it up. So clean that up a little bit. And I'm going to get it all kind of nice and gooey, and then I will get it in the pie pan ready to go. And the pie shell is going to go in at 350 degrees. With a normal graham cracker crust, it's about 8 minutes until it gets a little bit golden. Since it's a chocolate crust, we won't really see that golden, so I'm going to go for 7-8 minutes as well. And hopefully that won't over bake it, but we want to make sure that that butter and that sugar and that chocolate has all come together to form that nice solid crust that we can then put our chocolatey filling in. And as I finish getting the crust in the pie glass here, one of the things I always struggle with is, I'm wanting to get it packed down, I'm wanting to get it nice and even, and I always find out in that kind of crease where the base of the pie shell moves up to kind of the rims that I always have a little bit of extra graham cracker in there. It's one of the things that always seems to happen to me while I'm making a graham cracker crust. If you have a way with making your own graham cracker crust and figuring out how to make those corners not really dense and chunky, let me know. That would certainly make it a lot easier to get out of the pie shell when I'm done, or out of the pie pan when I'm done. Anyway, got a nice chocolate shell here. I'm going to put it in the oven about 8 minutes at 350, and then once that's all done, what I'll do is I'll get my fillings ready, and we'll go through kind of creating that chocolatey inside and our whipped cream topping. So let me get this in the oven and then we'll start preparing the rest. Alright, so I've got my shell out of the oven. I'm going to let it cool, and I'm going to put this off to the side so that we can use it a little bit later on. But as you can see, I've got things ready for the various fillings and toppings, so let me put the pie shell down real quick. Alright, so we'll give that a chance to cool. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make the whipped cream topping. And the reason I'm doing this before the chocolate filling is for a couple of different reasons. One, I use a little bit of the whipped cream before it's sweetened. I put it off to the side and I actually put it in the chocolate filling. I find that it gives it a little fluffiness, a little creaminess, a little lightness to that really rich, dense chocolate filling. The other part of it is a little bit of ease. It's easier to clean up the whipped cream than it is to clean out the chocolate filling, so it makes it easier to transition between the two different items that we need our mixer for. So let me get the cream out of the freezer. I put it in there for a few minutes just to get it really cold, and then we'll start making our whipped cream. So let me go grab that real quick. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 2 cups of whipping cream, and I'm going to whip it up into a nice whipped cream. And then I'm going to pull about 1/4 of it out so that I can make the rest of the whipped cream available for the topping, which is going to be sweetened. It's going to have a little bit of vanilla, but I want the more kind of basic unflavored whipped cream to go in that chocolate filling. It's not going to add a lot to the flavor, it's just going to add a lot to the texture of it. So let me get the 2 cups going in here, and we will get it whipping. All right, close enough. All right, and again, we're going to look for it to just start solidifying, puff up, get light and fluffy. All right, here we go. Fast forwarded there a little bit through the whipping process. But as you can see, our cream has whipped up very nicely, very smoothly. What I'm going to do with that is divide it out then so that I can use some of it with the chocolate filling, and some of it can be what I use on top of the pie to help cover it. And this is where I get a little bit unscientific for you. I'm just going to say, I'm going to take about 1/4 of it, and I'm going to gauge that by eye, just to give myself something again to use. Not going to worry too much about measuring it too heavily, but in a little bit I'll put that in the fridge, and I'll do that with the rest of the whipped cream there. I think I may have taken a little too much. Make it work. And anything that doesn't go in the pie can always go back into the topping, which is great. So it's all just whipped cream. What I'm going to do now to sweeten this is I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. You can vary that based on your taste. This will give it a good bit of sweetness. I'll just whip it real quick once that's in there. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is add a teaspoon of vanilla. I love to add vanilla into most everything, but with whipped cream it does really help to give it a little bit more flavor. Don't want it to just be sitting on top of the pie without much going on. So, tempted to add more, but that gives it a nice little bit of vanilla. I am going to whip it again really quickly here. But this way, anything that was on the side of the mixer is a little bit better incorporated. I can pull up some of the whipped cream that it was at the bottom, again, helping get that ready to go. And what I'm going to do now, if I get the mixer off, is I'm going to take this whipped cream as well, put it off to the side. I'm going to put it in the refrigerator, and then I'll get things ready for the chocolate topping. So that's one of the reasons I make the whipped cream early. Gives me a chance to make a couple different batches that I'll use to put in the filling and to top the pie. So I'll get these in the fridge, I'll reset my mixer, and then we'll get into the chocolate. All right, ready to make the chocolate filling. So we're going to start off, we're going to have a couple of sticks of butter, and they've been out of the fridge for a couple of minutes. Let them warm up a little bit, but they're still relatively firm. We're going to use 2 sticks of butter, 1.5 cups of sugar, and we're going to mix that for a couple minutes until they're well incorporated. What I also did while I was resetting is I took 4 ounces of baking chocolate. I used 66%. I melted it down, and I've been kind of letting it sit at room temperature so it's not too hot. Definitely want cold ingredients for this part of the process. But we're going to start with whipping our sugar and butter. Then we're going to do our 4 ounces of melted and cooled chocolate with a teaspoon of vanilla. We're going to get that all mixed together, and then slowly we're going to add 1 egg at a time, really incorporate it, add 1 more egg, really incorporate it. We're going to do that for 4 eggs. And at that point then we'll have our chocolate mixture for the inside of the pie. Where I do things, just based on some of the tastes and textures of my family, is that's when I add in that extra bit of whipped cream, adds a little creaminess to that really dense, rich chocolate filling, which is just kind of something we like to do. So play with it a little bit on your own and see what you think, but we add a little bit of that whipped cream in once the mixture's all ready, just kind of fold it in. So a lot of mixing, a lot of waiting, so we'll hit some highlights as we go. So I'm going to start though with the butter and the sugar and get that going. so the butter and the sugar have been whipping together for a few minutes. I'm gonna try to clean a little bit of it out of the whisk attachment, and then I'm going to scrape the sides of the bowl to just help get everything there in the middle. And since all of that is nicely, has nicely come together, looks almost like a paste. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to drizzle in the chocolate that I had made and cooled earlier. See if I can get that mixer in a better place. There we go. Just a little further away from me. It's easier to pour things in. So I'm going to just kind of drip that in, see if I can get it all over that butter. And we'll start to incorporate that. I'll also add in my vanilla, and then we'll let all of that mix in together. Following all of that, we'll go into our eggs one at a time, and then we'll, based on my own preferences, we'll get that whipped cream entered in there and mixed up in there, fold it in, and we'll have our pie filling. All right, we're going until it's well combined. It definitely looks like a very thick, chocolatey mixture. Chocolate, butter, sugar, a little vanilla there. Very, very thick, very, very rich. And at this point, what I'm going to do is we are going to mix in the eggs. And this is a 1 egg at a time situation. It's going to be 4 eggs. I've already got them cracked and ready to go. I'm going to dump one in. I'm going to let it mix really well, incorporate a few minutes, honestly, for each egg is what's going to be happening here. And then from there, what we're going to do is then add in our whipped cream and put it in the shell. So I'm going to start getting this ready to go, 1 egg at a time, and work through the beating process of the mixture to make sure it's really rich, really thick, and ready to go. All right, so a lot of mixing went on there. Had a chance to do a little cleanup as I was adding those eggs in and waiting for them to incorporate. We have a nice thick chocolatey mixture here. Let me clean off the whisk attachment, and then I'll give a preview of what we've got going on in here. Put this in the sink. What has happened through the course of this is as we add the eggs, certainly eggs are more of a liquid ingredient, we start to get something that looks a little bit more like a chocolate mousse in its consistency. It is still a little bit thick. One of the things that I did while it was mixing between the eggs is I would scrape the sides of the bowl a little bit just to make sure that all of that stuff was incorporating. And again, something that I do to add that lightness, a little bit of creaminess to it, is to fold in a little bit of whipped cream from that batch we made earlier. So I'm just going to take that little bit and I'm going to gently fold it through, and adds a little creaminess to it, helps cut through some of that chocolate. It is a very heavy mix with the butter and the eggs and the sugar and everything. So a little whipped cream adds a little bit of lightness. And what I'm going to do from here is then I'm going to take that pie shell that we made earlier, throw it in there, big surprise. And then I'm going to put it in the fridge, and honestly, you want to let this thing chill for quite a while. I made the whipped cream well ahead of time. It can sit in the fridge too and hang out. They can be buds in there. But we're going to let it chill for a couple hours or so. I think what I'm actually going to do is put it in the fridge for about an hour, and then maybe move it over to the freezer for a little bit. Really want it set, really want it firm, and then we'll pile that whipped cream on to give it that topping. But you, again, want to let it cool down again. Those ingredients have warmed up as they've been out here. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this nice creamy mousse of sorts, put it in the pie shell, spread it all around, and then get it in the fridge again. A couple hours. If you can wait longer, that's great. The important thing is cooling down the temperature of that chocolate filling after all of those ingredients have warmed up through the mixing process. So that's what we're gonna do. We'll get all this in here and I'll get it in the fridge, and then we'll rejoin when it's set and we can add that whipped topping. Pie's been in the fridge, it's set. It's been about 2 hours. I gave it about 90 minutes in the fridge, moved it to the freezer for half an hour just to allow it to harden up a little bit and make sure I finish the video before calling it a night. What I've got is the whipped cream made earlier. I've got my spatula over here. I've got a piece of chocolate that I used for another bake that I had left over. I do a few chocolate shavings on top of it, but really this is kind of the point where it all comes together. We've got our chocolatey graham cracker crust, we've got our rich chocolate filling, and we've got loads of lightly sweetened vanilla whipped cream. And we're just gonna spread it on top there. You can just dollop it on there. You can do some piping, whatever you want. It just adds, again, that layer of creaminess on top of all the great chocolatey stuff that you got going on. I'm just gonna spread it on there tonight. This pie does take a little while because you have that time that's spent in the fridge allowing that filling to set. And it's a little bit of time in the mixer to get that filling, but truly it's a fairly easy pie to bake. The graham cracker crust goes really quickly, and then you let the mixer do all the work for you, which is really nice. So if you have suggestions on ways that you might want to improve this, or other things that you've done to create kind of chocolate pies, French silk pies, and the like, please leave your comments, let me know. This is a recipe that has been kind of evolving for me. And like I mentioned at the start of the video, this will be the first time I've done a chocolate crust with it. I'm gonna get this whipped cream on here. Again, tonight I'm just kind of putting it on there and getting a nice mound of it. Then I'm gonna do some chocolate shavings, and then I'll put it back in the fridge for my family to enjoy tomorrow. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, tell all your friends, have them come by and take a look. Oh, there's a little more whipped cream there. No harm in some extra. But it's a great pie. Again, you don't have to add the whipped cream into the mix if you don't want. That's just something I do based on family taste. I make all that whipped cream ahead of time and whatnot just because it makes it easier to deal with the mixer later. Much easier to get the whipped cream out. And when it's all said and done, when it comes out of the fridge. Add chocolate shavings, add graham cracker crumbles, leave it just with the whipped cream topping. Truly up to you. Again, just had a little leftover baking chocolate and whatnot from another bake, and so I'm using that, taking advantage of some leftovers to add just a little bit more to the pie. But there we go. I'll get a photo of the finished pie. I will get a slice of it out and take a picture of it to share at the end of the video. Thank you for joining me. Sorry it's been a while since I've been able to bake, but I appreciate you joining me. Thanks for joining John Tries to Bake, the French Silk Pie edition. Stay well, and again, I'll get some pictures of this at the end for you to enjoy. Thanks for coming. Hit like, hit subscribe, and see you next time.